Welcome to Market Research Society of India's Wednesday webinar, Season 8. Next slide, please. A little bit about the MRSI before we dive into today's topic and meet our panelists. MRSI is a unique not-for-profit association of both providers and buyers of research and insights. It was established in 1988 to create awareness among the industry and bring together the best minds to drive the interest of the industry. Sandesh, do you want to stay on the earlier slide, please? A lot of things MRSI does, including promoting professional standards, providing a platform for professionals to engage and showcase their work and collaborate to their marquee events. And the webinar plays a critical role of expanding the boundaries of knowledge that our professionals can access and engage with. The board of directors of the industry body spans various sectors of the industry. Next slide, please. This webinar itself is guided by all the people you see on this slide. Abhinav Goel, who's the lead consumer shopper and insights from Nestle. Uttara Dhawan, the associate vice president from the Third Eye. And Adhya Sinha, also representing Third Eye and a research manager with them. I'm your host today. I'm also part of the webinar committee. I'm Sundar Muthuraman, an independent consultant in marketing measurement. The other gentlemen who are part of the committee are Amitabh Mishra, an experienced person in CPG, pharma, and quite a leading light in the insight space. Sivakumar Somanathan, my fellow Chennaiite and a consumer behavior consultant, and runs Curious Cat Consulting. We try and get the best of speakers. We have a wonderful bunch for today who I will quickly introduce all of you to. Next slide, please, Sandesh. Today's panelists, we have Kalyan Kumar, who's the co-founder and CEO of KlugKlug. I think there is a spello there. Sorry, Kalyan. We also have Pramod Pawar, Vice President Quantitative Research from Hansa Research, and Kunal Sawant, Business Head, the GOAT Agency, part of the WPP Media. Welcome all, and happy to have you here. We've had quite an interesting set of meetings and conversation in the run-up to this webinar. I'm pretty excited about the content that we're about to share on this wonderful topic, top of mind for our community and marketers. Next slide, please. Titled Attention to Action, how influencers are shaping consumer behavior, how influencers are becoming a key conduit of brand messages, shaping consumer choices, and obviously launching a new set of brands in this digital-first economy. Without much ado, let me call on first Kunal to speak a bit about the industry and what he and his WPP Media Group think of this space and how large it is as a marketplace. Over to you, Kunal.
Thanks. First of all, thank you, Sundar and MRSI, for this opportunity. We can move to the next slide. So at GOAT and WPP, every year we do the sizing. We also release an once influence marketing report, which we released this year somewhere in June, where we do the sizing of this industry also. That's an elaborate exercise, and we will talk about it in the future slides also. But this industry is fairly big. It's what largely around 3,600 crore was our estimation last year. Growing at a CAGR of 25%, projected growth rate of 25%. So this year we will end at 4,400 crores. And believe me, this money is only from brands to influencers. The money that the brands invest on media is far above this. So organic content creation today stands at 4,400 crores ending 2025. We also did a lot of survey with brands, and we understood that almost 92% of them are planning to increase their influencer marketing spends. On the overall AdX basis, if you look at it, it is roughly less than 3% of the overall AdX right now.
Thanks, Kunal. And Kalyan, you had some interesting perspectives on the market size itself, and you felt it was much larger. Sandesh, if you can go to the next slide, and Kalyan,
Yes.
your view on the same, please. Yeah.
So at KlugKlug, we did a quick look around. We saw that there's a lot of brands, the new brands, the digital first brands, the D2C brands. We looked at certain amount of upcoming e-commerce brands and the massive size of those and their deployments on social media. And we spoke to a bunch of founders and a really long tail. And in our interactions, we found that currently the influencer marketing long tail including and this attribution cycle therefore becomes a much larger sample to universe exercise. It's showing at a 10,000 crore plus reality right now today. So of course there's a lot of depth in that process. We can do that, but uh, here's the thing. I think the spectrum is huge, the growth is large, and I think that's where we leave it. But it's already gotten sized heavily, and there is a big unorganized sector, let's just call it, or in-house sector to many growing brands which are massive, who are tripling down on influencer marketing, content marketing, not counting media monies. Please, let's go ahead. Back to you, Kunal. Just thought we'd
Yeah, thanks,
the
Kalyan. But
spectrum of
you know, when we have slightly different opinions on the size, as each of you experts, and it depends on which prism or which lens you look at the market at. But who exactly is the influencer, right? So perhaps in the order of Kalyan, Kunal, and Pramod, if you can just help define who the influencer is, because there seems to be a lot of I would say perspectives. Some people say celebrities are influencers. Some people say, maybe you're a spokesperson for the brand and you're an influencer, etc., etc. But just your quick perspective. So we set the house in order from you experts. Kunal, sorry, Kalyan, you start. Kunal and Pramod in that order, please. Thank you.
I have a simple perspective. See, there's a lot of marketing legacy continuity into influencer marketing where we looked at brand ambassadors and celebrities as influencers. But my definition is influencers come from the other spectrum of being digital first content creators who made content to appeal to an audience on social media and build their audience. Just to continue on that on the spectrum, many influencers have become celebrities, but are they content creators? Celebrities are not content creators. A celebrity will make one post a month. A content creator and an influencer make 3 posts a day and 10 stories a day. So you get the thing. I've built my audience online. I cut my teeth online. I may have become larger than life and reached the screen. That is my definition of an influencer.
Okay. Kunal, your views, please.
Sure, I'm going to add to what Kalyan mentioned and what you also briefly touched upon, Sundar. Who's a content creator? Who's an influencer? I think the lines between the two are the lines between all these this evolution is happening from all directions. All these passion content creators who are all originally known for storytelling, they are leveraging their powerful communities and look at digital first influencers. Right? Look at all the realms of only digital web series, walking red carpet at the Cannes, at Ambani went, politician and bureaucrats. So they're everywhere.
Kunal, sorry to interrupt you. Perhaps there's an audio issue at your side. Just take off your video. It could be sometimes bandwidth.
Yeah.
We can then hear you more clearly. Yeah.
Is this better now? Does this
Much
make
better.
Yeah, much better.
Yes.
We
Yes.
spoke about content creators, influencers, and completing this full circle is actually traditional celebrities who have television, who have probably successfully mastered and right. So these lines are clearly getting blurred. One thing I think current any
So Kunal, sorry, I think we're still having audio issues from your end. Perhaps there is some background noise, or if you're on Wi-Fi, just reorient your machine or plug in into a cable.
Check my Wi-Fi. I'm gonna come back in a minute.
Yeah, please do that. And Pramod, if you don't mind, if you can step in, and then we can have.
Sure. So I think I'll try to keep it very simple. I mean, from the layman's perspective, let's say, see, every day we make a lot of decisions related to, what to buy, what to eat, what to watch as well. And throughout this decision-making journey, there is somebody to whom we always reach out to take some kind of advice, right? So that somebody is basically influencer in our life. Now that could be in person, that could be on a social media platform as well. Now in today's context, we're talking essentially about the influencer who's accessible through a social media platform. So somebody who has a power to influence your decision making is basically in simple language of an influencer. Now, all of us have said about, there is an influencer, there is a celebrity. Now there is a thin line difference between both this set of audiences as well, whether it's a celebrity or whether it's an influencer, right? Now, one fundamental difference between both of them are you find influencer to be more relatable as opposed to a celebrity. Celebrities still are aspirational in our head, right? Versus influencer are one to whom we can connect on a day-to-day basis. We can relate more with their lives, their stories, and therefore there's a lot of relatability and therefore a trust which imbibes when you talk about these influencers. So I think that's a simple definition of an influencer that I would want to quote.
Sure. So let me quickly sum up, and then we'll check if Kunal is on back. Else we go back to probably reorder the flow a bit and come back to what Kunal has to say, right? So what I'm getting out of what all of you have said, I'll start with Pramod, what you mentioned in saying that it is about a person who can be a trusted entity or an aspirational entity who provides a perspective based on which consumers can take decisions or make a choice, right? And Kalyan, you came with a different lens, and you said, to me, yes, all these are required, but they also need to be creators of content. And it is from that perspective that they get this right to speak or right to engage with all of us and consumers in general. And I think the other valid point that all of you made is that, at least from the perspective of this discussion, we are speaking of such individuals who have used social media to build a certain following in a certain context that they are experts at, and those are the influencers that we would kind of have as a point of reference for this webinar, right? So would that be a fair summary? Quickly, Kalyan, Pramod, and just a quick voice check, Kunal, if you're back.
I'm back. I hope this is better now.
Oh,
yes.
This is super, man. Thank you. Yes. All right. Okay. So any last words, Kunal? I mean, we missed what you said, but the one that I heard was the line is blurred between celebrities and influencers. It's a lot of things. So if you can just quickly sum up, and then
Sure.
share with us, WPP Media and your perspectives on this space based on the research you alluded to earlier in the discussion. Yeah, over to you, Kunal.
I'm going to repeat actually what Pramod and Kalyan mentioned. Anybody who's got a social media following has the power of influencing either your purchase decisions or even opinions for that matter, is actually an influencer, be it a content creator, influencer, or a celebrity, it doesn't matter.
All right. So you're giving them a broad brushstroke and say, as long as you can do some or all of it, you are an influencer to me. Wonderful. Back to you, Kunal. I mean, just run us through, what's happening in this space. What did your research come and indicate, and how are brands and clients thinking about influencers and their role in their marketing and brand development? Over to you.
Sure. We can move to the next slide. Cool. So that's the report which I spoke a couple of minutes back. We've released this report in the month of June this year. While it's a fairly large report, what it also tries to uncover is the client side of the story. We can move to the next slide. I'm going to talk about the survey participants and the methodology in the next two slides. So largely what we've done is we've gone across different sectors. So it is FMCG, BFSI, manufacturing, retail, and e-com. That's the composition of kind of clients and categories that we want to. And the participants are either the CMOs or the marketing heads. So these are largely all decision makers. All this is powered by Kantar, who's been our research partner for this. We move to next. What we've also done is one is distribution of this client pool in terms of key sectors, but we've also done a good mix of traditional brands versus emerging brands. So traditional brands are all PNGs and Tatas and Batas and ITCs of the world, whereas the emerging brands are a lot of these D2C brands, a lot of e-com, quick com kind of stuff. So it's a fairly good mix of new age versus traditional brands spread across all these four categories. We can move to next. Unanimously, every single client has said that either influencer marketing is their strategic or a top priority. So it's not the third priority or the second priority also. Either it is the strategic priority or a top priority for almost all the brands. Surprisingly, 71% has claimed that they want to do influencer marketing throughout the marketing calendar. It's only 24% somewhere where they do campaign specific influencers. So you're going to see a lot of always on kind of an approach going forward. Yes, we can move to next. Some of the key insights that we uncovered while we did this survey is besides follower base, I think content quality and audience engagement are actually becoming increasingly important for brands when it comes to either identifying an influencer, even looking at success metrics, which we'll speak on the following slides. Overall, while it is 55% across all four categories, but manufacturing is far higher index. For them, content quality and audience engagement become extremely critical. Brands want to invest in niche micro influencers. These are the ones who actually have authority on a particular subject, either acquired knowledge or certified. But these are the ones who can drive a lot of conversations. So 51% want to invest a lot on niche micro influencers. So that's going to be a sweet spot for next year. And manufacturing again here is slightly more over indexed. We can move to next. Brands going to prefer long-term partnership with specific influencers. So now this is going to be a strategic shift again. A lot of times these influencer posts that we see are one-off associations and then there is a long break. But brands have clearly called out, and 72% have called out, and 95% of manufacturing have called out that they want to look at long-term partnership with select pool of influencers. It could be across product lines also. It may not be the same product again and again. At the discovery level, while there are many tools available in the market, platform tools also available in the market, brands still find it difficult to actually discover the right influencer. And this is much more higher in the BFSI space, understanding the kind of regulations which are there in this kind of industry. We can move to next. Now, what are the key insights when it comes to success metrics? So no more views or impressions is any yardstick now. Brands are very clearly saying engagement is going to be our success metrics to gauge success of an influencer campaign. They're putting content quality as second, while engagement remains the number one priority for them to gauge the success of a particular campaign. Content quality definitely is becoming second, and hence a role of macro influencer who understand making content slightly more nuanced and high quality content might be better. And definitely they are looking at conversion and sales. While this number today is 23%, this number will only grow up as the years pass, but people would want to look at a push at a bottom line. We can move to next. 70% brands partner with influencers actually to build trust and credibility. Somewhere what we spoke, right, of who's actually an influencer. They've got a close circle, they've got an inner circle who trust what they say and believe that this guy is going to promote something which is already using. So it builds in a lot of trust and credibility. Naturally, this tends to these two categories, over indexing, which is BFSI, which is largely to BFSI and FMCG, both are very close, 77, 76%. Where you buy something, you invest something where you have trust in that particular product or brand. We can move to next. Now comes to the overall funnel, right? Be it discovery, consideration, or action. Does influencer impact all across the funnel? The answer is yes. 63% of the consumers have said that they discover products looking at influencer content. They've also built consideration by understanding the product usages and things like that. And they've also taken action. And 2 in 3 followers rely on influencer to build product preferences, which is a fairly large number. It's almost like 66%. We can move to next. What are those evolving strategies? 95% brands prefer to work with macro influencers. Somewhere goes back to the point that content quality, if that's the barometer to check success, then probably macro influencers who've kind of been through this journey of micro, nano influencer to a micro influencer, understand the audience better and have aced their content creation capabilities. What it also gives brands is a comfort when it comes to brand safety and content quality. So that becomes priority. Engagement rate is becoming the currency going forward, and brands are definitely prioritizing on content quality. We can move to next. Part of that report is also a section that we've released. This is only half of what we've done so far. So at GOAT and WPP, we are also partnering with IIT Mumbai to try and get some method to this madness when it comes to measurement of influence marketing campaigns. And three important people as part of this journey is Shilpa Desai, Professor Dinesh Sharma, and Professor Aditi Kalra, where we are all trying to figure out, make some method to this, to bring some method to this madness. We can move to the next slide and I'll talk more about the methodology of how we've done that. So there are two components that you see on the screen right here. One is the quantitative part of it. So what we've done is we've actually analyzed 60,000 influencer posts. That's a lot of posts across 52 brands and 8 categories. We've also done one-on-one interviews. We've done 12 brand manager interviews, 2 media agency interviews, and we've also gone and spoken to some 350 odd followers. In terms of qualitative input that goes behind this particular survey or a research is actually looking at audience demographics.
Oops.
I think we lost Kalyan. We give him
Lost
a
him.
few seconds. Yeah. Sandesh or Deep, if one of you can call him, maybe he doesn't realize.
I'm so sorry, I got dropped, I think, but I am back. Am I audible?
Oh, you are. Welcome back. Yeah.
Sorry for this interruption. I believe there is no meeting without a tech interruption. So we've had one. Hopefully, we have no more. I spoke about the quantitative inputs on the research part of it. On qualitative, what we've done is we've accounted for audience demographics, we've looked at content formats, engagement rates, content genres, and follower count. So all this gets into is part of this research. We can move to the next, and I will talk about key findings and insights. I think it's pretty common now, well known to everyone. Follower size and engagement rate are definitely not linear. In fact, they work in the opposite way. And what drives engagement for an influencer? It's actually authenticity of the content, right? Where it's not in the face of it, but you feel the creator is going to talk about his natural life, right? Does the creator also have domain expertise in that particular content or the subject that he's talking about? And definitely audience alignment. Brand age definitely matters. So if you look at a new brand, the problem with them is to build trust and authenticity. Maybe micro and nano influencers work far better for them because they have a very small community but highly engaged community who trust into what influencers say. Whereas an established brand, for him, maybe brand equity is paramount, and hence creating quality content using macro influencers becomes extremely critical. We can move to next. Oh, sorry, can you just go back one slide back? Yes, thank you. I think the success of any influencer campaign begins with setting clear, measurable objectives. So if it is awareness, then you want to look for reach, engagement, reach and views and impressions so far. If it is consideration, then maybe what we prioritize is to look at quality of interactions and engagement. And if it is purchase, obviously you want to look at redemption of codes and sales and things like that. Brands today definitely are going beyond the vanity metrics, and they are prioritizing not just comments but quality of comments over just likes and views, and they're also trying to monitor authentic interactions and brand mentions. Long-term partnership, again, this was something which brands also spoke out very vocally, will become extremely critical. Foster ongoing partnerships with high performing influencers. Let's say you partner with 100 influencers in a campaign, you might want to look for those who perform slightly better, and hence it probably delivers better campaign ROIs for you as well. We can move to next. Hence, to summarize, what are the 4 key inputs or findings? One is audience dynamics definitely have a very large role to play when it comes to identification of an influencer and the success of the campaign as well. Clear definition of campaign goals, is utmost important. Influencer brand fit becomes the third critical parameter, and life cycle of the brand. Is it a new age brand, old age brand, new category, old category? All of it will define selection and success of influencer.
Thanks,
Sundar, you want
thanks, Kunal. Yeah, I think very interesting perspectives. As all of us from the marketing and marketing research community look at what's happening around us, or even in fact how we are getting influenced in the brand choices we make, quite clearly influencers have a significant role to play. And like you rightly pointed out in this concluding slide, it's about audience dynamics. It's about what you want to achieve as a brand, which is your campaign goals. And you also spoke about moving away from vanity metrics, and you need to kind of start focusing on what you really want to achieve, and is there a brand fit to using that influencer. And I think a very interesting point you make in terms of life cycle of the brand. Are you a well-known brand? Are you a brand that is building a franchise? And that determines who and how you use this influencer channel, right? Let me request Pramod to come on board. We've heard from Kunal the perspectives about what advertisers or clients want, and Pramod will speak to us and share some data information about what consumers see the space as. But before we have Pramod speak up, housekeeping announcement, attendees, in your screen you would see a question window or a menu option. If you have questions for any of our panelists, please type them in. I will be able to see those and ask those questions to the panelists that you want me to post a question to, or I will just post it to the panel at large. And I know if there are several questions, we might run out of time. And if some things like that happen, be assured that our panelists would respond to the questions, and the responses will be available as part of this recording of this webinar, and it will be available at the MRSI portal. Over to you, Pramod. Let's hear about what you've actually named as how India recognizes and engages with creators. What do you and I want as consumers?
Sure. Yeah. So thanks, Sundar, for setting the context, and thanks, Kunal, for wonderful insights from the marketer's point of view. I'm trying to put some different lens now when I'm talking about next few slides. I'm trying to put a lens from the consumer side, how consumers are eventually looking at the influencer, what are the recognition that they have, what are the key parameters that they evaluate when they look at the influencer. So it's more about a consumer lens that I'm going to talk about. If you could just move to the next slide. And while I'm talking about the consumer lens, I'm also going to take a reference from one of the syndicated study that we run at Hansa Research, which is the brand endorses study. Just quick bit about the study. This study is essentially, we cover close to about 5,000 plus respondents as a part of this particular study, covering 36 cities in India, covering metros, tier 1, tier 2 markets. And the intent is basically to evaluate 350 plus celebrities and influencers, but they're across, the sports, films, OTT, television, social medias, etc. One of the key objective of this study is also to put some kind of a ranking metrics to this, to this influencer, so that we understand their rank order with the help of, let's say, some metrics called brand endorser score. But one of the key important parameters that we do as a part of the study is also to map the personality traits of this individual influencer and try to map that back with the relevant categories that they belongs to. So I think one of the points that Kunal also specified about a brand fit or a category fit, and that's one of the important parameter when also as a brand manager when you evaluate your influencer for your brand. Yeah, next slide. Now let me start with one of the striking shift that we've seen from the consumer lens over a period of time. Now, if you just look at this data, the influencer recognition itself has gone up by about 52% in the last couple of years. So when we did the similar kind of a study a couple of years back versus now, the overall recognition about the influencer itself has gone up by about 52%. That means more and more people are now aware about the influencer as a category or influencer as a person. That also means that the consumer today are not just consuming their digital content, but they also know exactly who these influencers are. And it's also somewhere the impact of the influencer driven strategies that most of the brands, most of the categories that are playing up now. So it also somewhere indicates that, the influencer driven strategies are trying to be a mainstream now, and it's no more a niche segment catering to a specific target audience. It's trying to create an impact across the categories, across the consumer types as well. If you just move to the next slide. Now, when we look at the same growth of 52% across the different geographies, across different zones. And we all know that India is not a uniform country when it comes to the different geographies. And every zone has its own nuances. Every zone has its own pace to grow with, right? And same thing that we see here is that the West zone is actually increasing in this particular space in a rapid space, about 67% of the growth that we've seen in the overall recognition of the influencer over the last couple of years, which also somewhere a reflection of the digital penetration that we see in the Western zone. It's also a more mature influencer ecosystem that exists in the West zone that somewhere reflects or that somewhere fuel this growth about overall recognition that to be at 67%. North is basically the second highest growth region. South and East, although in the relative context, is slightly low in terms of the pace at which the market is growing. But at the same time, there are a lot of nuances that we see in a South and East zone. These are more locally driven markets, they are more regional driven market, and which is where the content in the regional language or the influencer who creates the content in the regional language, that is something worked well in this market as opposed to the national influencer that we see across Western and North zone. So the bigger point that here for the marketer is that when we look at the influencer strategy for our brand, we need to think about the region that we're going to cater to, right? It's not about a pan-India strategy when it comes to the influencer, right? So something which works in a West zone may not work in a South zone and vice versa. So therefore, we need to be very cognizant about which market that we're catering to and accordingly pick up our influencer that we are planning to go ahead with our brand. Now, similar way, if you could just move to the next slide. Similar way, when we think about influencer, all of us think about influencer to be there to target Gen Z as an audience or a younger audience to be get targeted by the influencer. That still remains a fact. But having said that, we do see a substantial amount of increase in the overall recognition, even amongst the millennial audience as well, right? So the momentum in terms of the growth is fairly same between the youth as well as amongst the millennial. So that again gives us an indication that the influencer strategy is no longer just about a Gen Z. Okay, so there is a lot of opportunity that the brand has even to extend this strategy for the millennial when they're targeting the millennial audience, or whenever they're targeting a mature audience. In that sense, they can also evaluate the influencer as one of the mainstream strategy in their media plan to target to this audience. Yeah, next slide. Now, while we look at the influencer as a segment, and this is something which all of us have spoken about earlier as well. So influencer in today's world is just not about having a reach about them or being a famous or being popular person. There is a lot of relatability with this influencer. So when we look at the survey again from the consumer's point of view, 82% of the consumer find the influencer are highly relatable. They could connect with the influencer on a day-to-day basis, and that's a fundamental difference that we see between an influencer and a celebrity, wherein celebrity is still more aspirational for a lot of consumers. They're not relatable to the consumer, to the celebrities, but the same thing goes very well with the influencer. It's also because a lot of these influencers, they also come from one of us, right? They share a lot of relatable stories on their posts. They talk about a lot of day-to-day routine when they create some kind of a content, so which is much more relatable to the Indian audience, and that in a way also somewhere build a trust amongst the Indian audience. So influencer is all about being relatable to the consumer. At the same time, it's becoming more and more trustworthy voice, and which is where it's also working well with some of this category where word of mouth is very, very critical, right? Yeah, next slide. Now, when we look at again this particular domain and the growth that we've spoken about amongst the influencer, there are a lot of genres which are also playing up and which are also coming into the play, right? So in terms of the overall growth, when we look at how these genres are also increasingly growing, so comedy and entertainment is one of the key genre. It's also one of the largest genre that is increasing significantly at about 72% growth rate, and it cut across the geographies, it cut across zone, it cut across target audience. Comedy and entertainment is also the entry point for most of the consumer to be into the influencer space as well. So that becomes a core still even today's world, right? Which then followed by the beauty and fashion genre, which is where again we see a substantial amount of a growth, largely driven by women in a metro market. Interestingly, cooking or food is also another category or another genre which has seen a substantial increase in the last couple of years. Again, it cut across the geographies, but specifically coming in from the smaller markets or the regional markets. Now, podcast is another interesting genre that we've observed in last couple of years, which has picked up significantly as opposed to what it was a couple of years back. It's still a small genre, but then again, the growth largely coming in from metro market, especially the younger men is what we see. And tech and gadget, again, lastly, is still a low on the recognition. Whenever the influencer, we talk about the influencer within this category, it's still low on the recognition as opposed to the rest of the other categories that we have seen. But this category is highly driven by the trust parameter. So whatever the influencer are talking about it is highly credible, is what the consumers feel for a particular influencer that they follow. And which is where, some of these categories are very, very critical when the influencer talk anything positive about a brand. Yeah, next slide. Same way, I think one of the things that Kunal also spoke about, which is the brand fit with the influencer, that is very critical. And on this slide, I'm just trying to put some of the example of the different categories and what exactly driving relevance in each of this category. So basically, when consumers are looking at a particular influencer in a particular category, what are the traits that he's looking at for his influencer to get followed by, right? And for an example, to just give an example of apparel and accessories category. So the influencer who is more stylish, more creative, more fashion forward is something which is more preferred or more followed by the audience when it comes to apparel and accessories category. This is also somewhere indicates, the overall aspiration and inspirational traits, which again goes back very well with the category codes of the apparels and the accessories, right? Same way when we look at, let's say, finance as a category. Now, finance is again very difficult category for anyone to understand, right? So therefore, it's very, very important for somebody to make it very easy for me with some kind of a practical nuances, some kind of a practical examples, and which is where being practical, being trustworthy, and again, a relatable traits are very, very important in the influencer to have in order to drive consumer base in a financial category. And same thing you look at for food, for an example. Now, food again is very emotional category. People connect over food on a regular basis, and that's why it's more relatable to from the consumer's point of view. The influencer has to be more relatable. It has to be more fun-loving or a family-oriented. So those are some of the traits that the consumers are looking at when they follow an influencer for this particular category. So the point is that, it's not only about the reach. It's not only about how many followers that the celebrity has. One thing that brand needs to be very careful about, that whether the traits of that individuals are matching back with my category, with my brand, because that is very critical for consumers also to follow an influencer in more relevant manner, right? And lastly, if you just move to the next slide. And lastly, in the same way, I mean, we all know this, right? Within India, there are a lot of India which exists within. So there is a metro behaves in a completely different way versus the emerging market or smaller markets behave in a completely different way. So metro audience is largely more savvy audience, more globally aware audience, more aspirational in that sense, and which is what is reflecting into their expectations also when it comes to an influencer, right? So they seek more influencer who's more stylish, more trendy personality, more classy, sophisticated, modern outlook, somebody who's more innovative. So the metro audience tend to seek out information or even the advices from some of these personality traits of the influencer who possess these personality traits. At the same time, when we look at the smaller markets, there's still more relatable personality, more approachable personality. These markets are still emerging markets, right? So therefore, something which is aspirational but yet down to earth personality is something that connects well with this set of audience. So the point that I'm trying to draw overall at a broader level is that influencer category per se is seeing a significant shift in last couple of years, right? So from the consumer lens also, it has gone by about 52% overall recognition. That also denotes the size and the pace at which this category is growing. Having said that, not all the geographies are same. There are some geography which are increasing at a faster pace. There are some geography which has a regional or a local nuances. Brand managers or marketer needs to be cognizant of this fact that India is not a one market, so we need to have a strategy according to the location, the market that we're looking at, the category that we are into. The brand fit is also very, very critical. It's not only about the reach, it's not only about the recognition, it's also about the relevancy with a category. Relevancy with the brand is which matters the most when we select the influencer. I think that's a broad point that I want to land on this table from the consumer's point of view. When a marketer think about, let's say, influencer, what are the key things that they need to keep in mind when they create influencer as their mainstream strategy? Yeah, thanks, Sundar.
Thanks, Pramod. I think, I'm just trying to recall some key points that kind of stuck to my head, right? One of the key points you made was, it's not a vehicle that only Gen Zers kind of look at. It's broad stream. It's like a broad spectrum population can now recognize and name influencers, and that's a good 50% of people you spoke to as part of your survey. And the other interesting point you made is the tension between it's not just about saying, oh, here is an influencer who has 1 million viewers, or here is 100,000 engagements, but it's about trying to get the best fit in terms of personality of the brand and that of the influencer. And I think you also referred to the context of expertise, right? In terms of some influencers being more on food, some on fashion, etc. So there is a certain amount of source credibility that comes with it. And that's something that brands ought to look at and leverage, because that's really how consumers are engaging with their influencers that they follow, right? I have a quick bunch of questions before I request Kunal to share his perspectives on a few points that he wanted to speak about. Kunal, this one is to you. In your slide, you spoke about brand life stage, and can you elaborate on that? What did you mean by that in the context of influencer marketing?
So let's take an example of a new brand. For a new brand, the priority for them is actually to build more trust and credibility within the consumers, right? So for him, maybe he should work largely with micro and nano influencers who got better engagement rates. So larger the follower base, lesser is your engagement rate, because you have a lot of generic following. But when it comes to a niche or a micro influencer, you will have audience who are part of your inner circle, and trust and authenticity here is slightly more higher. Move to an established brand who's already been established in the market. For him, probably trust and credibility is already there. Nobody has doubts on Godrej or Tata's, right? These kind of brands are already there for many years, and they've earned the trust and credibility for many, many years, right? So for them, probably building imagery and continuing to have wider reach becomes extremely critical. So they will probably, partner with more mega and macro influencers. Having said that, one dimension which we saw in the closing slide was also campaign objective. If the objective is actually to build consideration, then you will still have to work with micro and nano influencers who got better engagement rates. But if the campaign objective was largely to drive awareness, then you might shift the needle to mega and macro.
Thanks, Kunal. That was a question to you from Tejasvi. Uh, and there's a general observation from Kalyan. His question, and I guess any of you can pitch in. Do influencers distract sometimes from achieving campaign goals? Interesting question. So just your quick perspectives. Anybody wants to take lead?
I think my first response would be that this is a design problem if influencers distract from your campaign objectives. The influencer is just a tool. So can it distract? I think your question may be leading to the fact that can the age-old question, did the celebrity shine more than the brand in my DVC, TVC, etc.? So, but that's a design problem. Would an influencer distract from your thing? I'm saying the audiences are listening to influencers. They can only entrench you further in their consideration cycle. And just to take off also on what Kunal was responding to the question, I just wanted to weigh in there. Was sorry, I hope I've covered the first point.
You
weighing
have.
in,
Go on. Yeah.
the other one was that the brand life cycle, even within a larger brand, if you have a new brand launching, a new sub brand, a new category, etc., you might want to think about the same lens, which is credibility versus reach is inversely correlated for most influencers. The higher, bigger you are, the less likely your followers will think you're saying something credible about a brand without an incentive. So that's very important, the obviousness. And the other last bit was also if your product is high involvement, which means your rational decision making is more important than the emotional bits. That's where again the influence and the rationality and the consideration drivers that an influencer can bring in depends. So that's why even in Pramod's data, handset technology are high value, high involvement considerations, and that's why you need more lower end influencers who speak a language of trust in a category. So just wanted to leave you there with that. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Kalyan. Just summing up, obviously, the first question I raised was from Tejasvi, and the next one was from Kalyan. There's a question that I would lead to your section, Kalyan. Sandesh, if you can go to the next slide, and it's kind of segues right into it.
Right.
So the question from Janvi is, do influencer marketing have any role in B2B scenarios? That's the question. Maybe you start with answering that and lead into your efficacy and commerce context of the influencer marketing space. I know, Kalyan, from the conversations that we've had, you wholeheartedly believe that influencers can be your primary vehicle for building a very sizable brand
Right.
in the country today, right? So over to you.
So just to answer that question, in the B2B space, the environment is very different when you speak B2B space, because I would say that influencer marketing has been done in the pre-digital era, even more so in the B2B space, because you had very specific audiences. Consumers were never your audiences, as the CIOs, CXOs who were your audiences, and therefore there were ways and means to reach them. And therefore, which platform do you consider? I mean, why would you want to do it on LinkedIn if it was not CopComs? But if you wanted to really build leads, etc., in a B2B environment, really wants to speak to very specific people, you might choose platforms like LinkedIn. And then there is a problem in the design. Consumers speak, mass speak, social media matches very well for influencer marketing. B2B, unfortunately, uh, there's some very credible people on LinkedIn who will never post anything positive about a brand until they truly believe it. So buying the opinion of an influencer on LinkedIn of one that really impacts is very hard versus, and if you get the lower end influencers, they don't impact anyway. So there are many layers to that onion, but the B2B aspect of influencer marketing is one that still needs to be explored, because it requires a very precision, low volume, high value CXO like influencing, and who can speak to that audience. You'll have a lot of wastage for sure to start with. But let's peel that onion later. But moving straight on, let's have the next slide. What I'll be talking about is I made a very crazy statement a little while back that to look the deployed influencer content marketing landscape in our very detailed assessment is way in excess, actually in excess of 10,000 crores. And while the organized part of the business, like close to 25%, flows through the organized agency list of this, which is why you look at 2,000 to 4,000 crores spend on influence marketing in that environment. There's a ton of brands who are spending in excess of 20 crores a year. There are D2C brands that are, you may have heard, may not have heard, who do in excess of 6 crores a year, which is almost matching levels of an entire last year's Unilever like deployment. So when we look at those data, when you look at the number of in excess of 14,000 brands selling well in the consumer space on Amazon or managed by Amazon and so on, you know there's a size and scale when you marry this into Flipkart, Nykaa, Myntra, etc. There are people shifting market shares, deploying influencers, and actually having perfected that art to land on commerce. In fact, the other very important part, we saw that in the beauty segment, in the category of influencer marketing, the efficacy of getting high earned media values, which is if I deploy an influencer and I get a certain amount of reach in views and so on, and how much I paid, the multiplier is sometimes 2.5x, 1.8 to 2.5x of the value you get back if you design and data design audience first influencer marketing. So there's a lot of audience first data, which is the influencers, your mouthpiece, the followers that you really want to reach, and therefore brands who are below the radar but coming up and stealing market share are seeing these. In fact, we've seen in the category of home and kitchen a 5 to 7x EMV plowback. Literally, you can talk about it as ROS at least at the media value evaluation stage. How much does that impact commerce? We've actually seen how much your purchase intent actually goes up simply by looking at the math around how much your search has increased on commerce. We're looking at those kind of correlations, and there's some beautiful structures that are emanating. and that are still to be tabled today. Next slide. So I kind of delved into this. So I'm going to go straight past this slide because this was the first and second slide lead into the fact that, look, uh, where is therefore this money going? We also see a big efficiency challenge in the market. This is over the last few years of my personal experience, but also having looked at data. We're looking at something like when a typical brand designs its influencer marketing, they have a 50 to 60% of the audience reach that they think. I'll give you an example. I call it the great gender mismatch tragedy. For example, only about 14% of fashion and beauty female influencers actually have at least 50% female followers. So typically the large beauty, fashion, lifestyle brands have been talking to more than 70% of the time to male audiences while talking about female beauty. And therefore, that's one audience-led leakage. And that's just, I'm giving you a top line. There's many other layers of getting your demographics right, getting your active audiences right. The second one is actually investment wastage, and which is where a whole bunch of high spending big brands, D2C brands, upcoming brands, founder-led brands are deploying directly with in-house teams on influencers because they've seen that when I deploy through multiple partners, there's a main line, then the agency, and so on. Only about 30 to 50% of that money goes to work. This is typically it's a cleansing cycle that's happening out there in the industry. The opportunity of the market is huge. The opportunity to therefore create true value that says content to commerce. And this is also about not looking at it from digital attributions in the past. What did we do when we look at performance marketing? So then you started saying influencer marketing should have performance-led things. Let's share coupon codes. Let's put swipe up, link in bio, etc., or comments for link. These attributions only give 8 to 12% of the actual fair evaluation of an influencer's ability to sell for you. And therefore there are nuances there. But this is a very big point, which is to say, look, there are audience first leakages, and then there are channel inefficiencies. And the brands who are working on this below the radar, eating away market share in significant two digits in the last 12 months in a category is massive. I can give you an example that the largest selling soap brand on, let's say on Amazon, is none of the brands you think, but it's a brand called Ghar Soaps. And these are facts and data that correlate to how their deployment on content has yielded certain outcomes, that they have got the SOV on an e-commerce platform and by owning branded search. Second, next slide, please. This is further double clicking on exactly what we're saying. How are these brands and new businesses making such huge dents using influencer marketing? This is simply a case in point. Public data says that 43% of consumption is Gen Z right now. Marry that to millennials, will exceed 67% or more. They do not consume anything in the traditional media. For, if I had to really put it down, it's pretty much down to social media. They are on YouTube, Instagram. They are on OTT if you had to advertise. And they have a 7x brand recall when they consume stuff, because it's a salient media. It's not only a salient media, its relevance is insane, which is what kind of Pramod implied in his slides earlier. And to that extent, even Kunal said something to that effect. So high trust touch points with a 7x multiplier compared to the other traditional media. They're not watching TV at best, they're watching OTTs and so on. And therefore, what is the science? And this is what I want to leave you with. That there's a massive gap right now. Traditional thinking of linear performance, influencer content, etc., is gone. Brands, especially founder-led brands, are the ones who are most amenable to wear the CEO hat versus the brand manager hat, which is, they say, look, all the subjectivity about quality of content and aesthetics, I'll let the numbers decide. Because the let's just say the elitist brand thinking of beautiful content that I made for my TVC, DVC, and then I transfer and I go and cut paste that kind of thinking into influencer, it throttles your ability to create good content, or rather create content with influencers. It decreases the quality of the believability of the content, and therefore there's always a middle path. What's your brand versus what's your efficacy driver on influencer marketing? Brand-led thinking versus audience-first thinking. The entire aspect, and therefore to say what quantum of deployment of influencers will yield what kind of EMVs, will yield what kind of searches, will yield what kind of impact in my funnel of conversion of influencer marketing to commerce, is something we've been able to establish, and we are seeing some crazy learnings from the new brands, and therefore yeah, so we're saying there is a lot. There's a 10,000 crore excess market. That's brands that are significantly spending over 5 to 10 crores in a month, who are not mapped, who need help, who are getting it right, but can we do better for the rest of the universe? I'll just stop here because that's where all the fun is right now.
Thanks, Kalyan. And I play the other role in addition to moderating to watch time. We have about 4 or 5 minutes left. So let me ask one question that if you all can quickly answer, then I have a bunch of announcements to make before we end it. But before you get to my question, let me thank a few others who have raised questions. Be assured that you will get a response. Click and watch the video once it's posted. The panelists will type in their responses and it will be available with the video. The questions have come from Leena, Shilpa Shri, Prateek, Dr. Pinaki, and Tejasvi again. Quite a set of interesting questions. At one end saying that, should we work with macro or micro for niche sectors, and how much does the quality of the influencer matter, whether the Me Too products can kind of get there and use influencers and, be differentiated. And I guess there is a question on rural customers, and Pramod, this comes your way. You spoke about metro and tier 1 and 2, how different are rural customers. So there's a few others, and I hope you will take some time and answer those within the next 2 days. But here's my question to all of you. It's a compelling future, or more than the future, it's a compelling force as we speak right now today. To reach to a large segment of the buying audience, Kalyan, like you rightly put it, it's the Gen Zers and the millennials who are coming into money. So if you kind of step aside and say, just your comments on how will influencer marketing drive and coexist with, the other media out there? Is this the leader media? Do others have a role? And what's your quick perspective? Kalyan, perhaps we start with you, go in the reverse order, Pramod, and then Kunal to you. Kalyan, you go ahead.
I think while I'm a traditional marketer myself, for 2 decades earlier, what we've now seen more and more is, I think influencer marketing is beginning to make its case. Anything that scales is when it's able to truly make its case of the journey. So we had our traditional measures of brand on TV and print and offline, and etc. Performance marketing was easy when digital came in and it built attribution models. I think influencer marketing will continue to coexist. Brands need to run their own experiments. Why you cannot make sweeping statements about that which happened. Like I said, will it apply to your brand? If you're a food category that sells a certain ready to eat, it may have a lower conversion impact to start with. So many questions to be answered, and the only thing is data is being able to answer this a lot. And that's where, that is this community, that's all we believe in. In God we trust.
Data speaks. So Pramod,
data will only drive every. Sorry, long answer, I'll stop.
Sure. Pramod, your views, please.
I think my view is see both this strategy will coexist, right? So there are different objectives that the traditional media delivers versus there are different objectives that the influencer marketing also delivers, right? So traditional media works well with the mass scale brands, it generates awareness because it reaches to the larger set of audience. But when it comes to a specific categories, like whether it's a tech category, whether it's automotive category, where you need a lot of discovery phase as well, right? Which is where influencer plays very handy role to guide a consumer through making this decision, right? So traditional media will somewhere build some brand awareness, build some consideration, but the last mile conversion is something which will also facilitate more with the influencer marketing coming into the picture. So both for now will definitely coexist. There are some segments, there are some category which will be largely driven by influencer marketing as opposed to some category which will be largely driven by traditional media. But both these categories are here to stay for some time. Yeah.
Kunal, what's the
Thanks,
tension in WPP media versus your practice versus other practices?
No, see, I think unanimously we are all saying we will coexist. I think the answer lies of where is the audience. So on digital, let's say there are close to about 900 million people on digital. Social is close to 650, 700 million. We spend disproportionate time on social media. There are several reports on there. Conservative estimate is we spend 2.6 hours every day on social media. There's no other medium where you and me spend so much time. I don't know if there is any other medium. So there is more audience. We are spending enough and more time. There are enough reasons for us to believe that influencers can do awareness, consideration, purchase, right? So it definitely can coexist. I think the evolution or the inflection point right now comes where measurement, attribution, and commerce. I think there are three levers which kick in and influence the marketing. I think it's going to just go to the next level.
Thanks, panelists, Kalyan, Pramod, and Kunal. Wonderful insights. And I agree with the observation that you made, Kunal. We'll all coexist, but I think we are reaching an inflection point in how influencer marketing can play a role in our marketing mix. I'll quickly move on to announcements and then thank all of you for your time. An announcement to all our audience, the Golden Key Awards is around the corner. 16th December 2025 is the cutoff date for your nominations. So get acting. Please do so in time. Thanks again, Kunal, Pramod, and Kalyan for taking the time and wholeheartedly sharing information that perhaps is not easily available in the public domain. And obviously sharing your expert views as practitioners in this space. Thanks a lot. Till next time, if you want more information, you can connect with us at the website. You have all the details on screen. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks again.